Hey guys, this is Jack from the Anime Matchka podcast, and today I thought I'd make a review of the new Scott Pilgrim adaptation from Netflix. So let's get started. Let's just jump into it. Alright, so this new adaptation of the Scott Pilgrim book series is a pretty interesting one. I really enjoyed what they did with this series. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I was really surprised in the directions that they took this series. I think like many people, I was kind of expecting this series just to be a one-to-one adaptation of the book series, because I think for like a lot of fans of Scott Pilgrim, some of them were disappointed that the 2010 film deviates from the book series quite a bit in terms of the plot, and the movie kind of does its own thing at a certain point, which I didn't mind, because personally I don't really mind it too much when adaptations do something different from the source material, because then I feel that you can, read the books and watch the movie and get a completely different experience, so it's not always the same experience over and over again. And let's really be honest, like how many times has, a source material or an IP that we loved, when has it always been adapted like 100% with nothing being cut out or nothing being retold in a different way? But with that being said, I really like the direction that this new show took, because the show, to like the movie, to a certain extent, it adapts the Scott Pilgrim plot to a certain extent, but then takes a completely left turn after episode 1, and it does something that really deviates from the original plot. Because the show does that, it allows the story to go into different avenues that we didn't expect. And so one of the things that I really enjoy about this series, well, what it did, is that this series focuses more on the character Ramona Flowers. So in the story, Scott Pilgrim, instead of defeating Matthew Patel like he does in the book and in the movie, he mysteriously loses, he disappears, and all that's left is the coins, the coins that normally a person would get after they defeat an opponent in the Scott Pilgrim world. And so because of that, Ramona's narrative, her whole goal throughout the show, is to find out what happened to Scott Pilgrim. So this is kind of like a whodunit kind of like mystery. So essentially Ramona is like this kind of like badass detective. And so what I like about the show focusing more on Ramona is we get to learn more about Ramona than we did in past adaptations. Her character gets fleshed out a lot more, and we get to understand the dynamics better between her and her 7 evil exes. And in the show, part of the narrative is that she, in many ways, she reconciles with these 7 evil exes, which is very interesting, because in the other adaptations, the 7 evil exes are just basically glorified, video game bosses, and they're villains for Scott to defeat. But in this adaptation, they kind of get fleshed out a little bit more, and the show does things that you wouldn't expect with these characters, which is really fun. I think it's really cool what they do with taking all these anime influences and taking this anime aesthetic and trying to tell a very emotional story, emotional character driven story, which is really fun. Some things that I didn't like about this show is I wasn't really crazy about the pacing. I felt that after the Roxy Richter episode, we have 2 episodes back to back that focus on the characters of Lucas Lee and Todd Ingram. I wasn't really too crazy about the 2 episodes that focused on Todd and Lucas Lee. I felt that those episodes, were kind of filler, and that, maybe those 2 episodes, I felt like there wasn't enough going on in those 2 episodes to warrant 2 separate episodes. For the Lucas Lee episode, what we get out of that episode is that we learn that he's, about to become a washed up has-been actor who hasn't really had a hit in a long time, so his career is on the downswing. And aside from that, we get to see some cool skating sequences, but I really felt that the stuff with Todd and Envy and Ramona, I felt really just kind of meandered. And that was one episode that I just really couldn't get into the plot and everything. They kind of do this cool behind the scenes documentary thing, because in the show they're shooting a movie based on Scott Pilgrim as well. So it's kind of a meta thing, which is kind of fun, but also at the same time I don't feel like it's enough to hold my attention or to keep me captivated or making me wanting to learn more about these characters. Because while I was watching, especially the Todd and Envy episode, I felt when are we going to get back to the mystery? What other clues can Ramona find to see what happened to Scott? And so I felt that the Lucas Lee and the Todd episodes were not as strong as the episodes focusing on Matthew Patel or Roxy Richter. But beyond that, I really did quite enjoy the ending of it all, the ending of this 8-episode series. I did like how this series had sort of like a twist villain, because in this series, Scott Pilgrim is gone for most of the 8 episodes. He's there in the first episode. We hear his voice in the second episode, and we don't see him again till like about episode 6, till the very end, because we find out that during the fight between Scott Pilgrim and Matthew Patel, Scott was kidnapped by an older version of himself using time travel, and he finds out that the reason why his middle-aged self kidnapped him from his timeline was to prevent him from marrying Ramona, because old Scott believes that because he defeated the 7 evil exes, because he married Ramona, that his life like went to the crapper. Like basically his life was not what he expected it, and he's like depressed and unkempt and all that stuff. You know, he's not in a good place, and he thinks that marrying Ramona was the catalyst of his life going down the drain essentially. But it's a very interesting way to sort of like view the Scott and Ramona relationship, because I think it's very interesting, because you know, we see so many movies and TV where like it's about a romance, and you know, once the movie or the TV show ends, you know, we don't really see what comes after the happily ever after. And like I said, I really love the Scott Pilgrim movie, and I love the fact that it does kind of, you know, it does have a happy ending, but it also leaves you wondering, oh, well, what will happen next? So this show kind of answers that question. It kind of shows that, you know, even though Scott and Ramona really love each other, you know, it's not always like roses and rainbows. You know, there's going to be some rough patches. I just find it interesting that the plot of this TV series detoured a lot from the original synopsis, the original plot of the books, to give us something very special and very different. I don't know what the consensus is with Scott Pilgrim fans, although I really enjoyed this show. I also really enjoyed the movie. If I were to, you know, choose one or the other, I think I will still choose the movie over the show, because I did really enjoy Edgar Wright's direction in the original movie, and I really thought that the performances were done very well in the original movie, and I think the casting was just so spot on. But also, you know, the show does have the original cast from the movie returning to voice their characters, which is pretty awesome. You don't really see that too often. But I think for me really is the direction of that original movie. That original movie is so iconic to me, just what they were able to achieve in live action, and I really love that movie. But this show really does, I think this show does enough to make itself stand out from the movie, and I really love that movie. But this show really does, I think this show does enough to make itself stand out from the movie. I think what they do in terms of animation, I love the fact that they do a lot of animation techniques, like the lip syncing. You can always tell like the lip syncing is kind of off, because it's kind of emulating like the dubbing effect of many animes when they get brought over to English speaking countries. I also like the fact that, you know, some of the animation, you know, is kind of choppy, kind of like low frame rate, but then they really like, you know, kick everything into high gear for like the action scenes. And so I love that stuff. I love that aesthetic, and I like the style of it too, because they do some things with like texture and lighting. I noticed that in the documentary episode, they add like some digital grain to the image to make it look like, you know, it was being recorded off of a, you know, a digital camera and stuff. So I like little things like that. I think the one thing that keeps me from loving the show more than I love the movie is that it's really that pacing. It has, I would say that the show has a very strong start and a very strong and emotional end, but the middle part, it has its ups and downs. It has its ups and downs, and I don't feel that every character, I wouldn't say that every character wasn't done justice, but I didn't quite connect with every character the way that I connected in the Scott Pilgrim movie. But anyways, I've been rambling for quite a bit. I love this Netflix adaptation. If they do make a season 2, I'm really excited to see what they do with it. And this show is kind of a good example of like a reboot done well, where like, you know, the original creators come back, the original performers come back, and there's like a lot of love and care put into the show. So I would really love to see a season 2. There hasn't been anything confirmed that Netflix is going to produce a season 2, but hey, even if we just get this one season, you know, it's fine. It's fine for what it is. It's a fine, you know, if this is just a little mini series, great. You know, this is just a good addition to the Scott Pilgrim franchise, to the Scott Pilgrim mythos, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you for watching my review of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe. Share this video wherever you can. You know, leave a comment down in the comments. Tell me to make more, and maybe I'll do some. Besides that, see ya.